I know my behavior can be erratic sometimes.
What do you want me to do? What is it that you want?
If you really want to do something for me, then stop making this scene right now.
Oh, God, I can't do this.
I'm leaving. I've assessed the situation, and I'm going.
Where are you going?
Just leaving.
But where?
I have to return some videotapes.
Hello there, it is Naz Perez. I live in this little box you call a television, or maybe it's a big box, but welcome to RT Essentials. Today we are discussing films from one of my absolute favorite genres, films that fright and delight with suspense so intense it cuts like a knife, but then leaves you in stitches. You will scream, then you'll smile, and then, okay, I think you get it. I'm talking about horror comedies. And these movies are both scary and funny enough to hold their own in either category. Now, this hybrid genre has been a beloved part of mainstream cinema since the silent era, with many considering the 1922 Gothic classic One Exciting Night to be the pioneering release. But over the past couple of decades, horror comedies have seen a meteoric rise in popularity, especially thanks to some of the selections on this list, so stick around and find out which ones I'm talking about. These are the best horror comedies of all time. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, sorry.
What?
Hey,
What time is it?
we're going to have a flat meeting in about 10 minutes.
20.
Okay, is it?
What We Do in the Shadows is a mockumentary-style horror written and directed by Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, who also star in the leading roles. Now, it follows a group of vampire housemates living in Wellington, New Zealand, as they try to cope with the complexities of modern life, argue about trivial matters like doing the dishes, and they face off with a rival werewolf gang. Now, this film has all the foundations of a classic horror, suspense, monsters, eerie music, but let's be real, this is Waititi and Clement we're talking about, so of course it's gonna lean heavy on the laughs. And if you are a fan of Clement in Flight of the Conchords, then you're gonna love his character in this film, Vladislav the Poker. Side note for all of the true horror fans out there, Vladislav the Poker is based on Vlad the Impaler, a real-life Romanian ruler from the 15th century who may or may not have indulged in some unorthodox methods of warfare that ultimately earned him his moniker. Now, I'll spare you the gruesome details, but this is important because Vlad the Impaler served as the inspiration for Bram Stoker's novel Dracula. And without the novel Dracula, there is no film adaptation of Dracula starring Gary Oldman as the Count, and Gary Oldman's performance in that film directly inspired Clement's performance in this film. Whew. Now, although Clement admitted that his version of Dracula was far less, quote, successful and dashing.
You're on camera, mate. Don't do
What?
it.
It's okay, because I know this guy. It's Count F***ler.
Hey, don't swear.
Sorry, they
Yeah, we're werewolves.
Not swear.
What are we?
Werewolves, not swear.
No, it's
It's a very offensive word to call people.
well, unless you're talking about a bundle of sticks. Chase this bundle of sticks. Werewolves? Don't get it.
It's not real.
Nathan.
But What We Do in the Shadows was critically praised for its dark, edgy humor, with The Guardian calling it the best comedy of the year. It also spawned an American television series version with the same title that aired on FX in 2019 and is still going strong. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And that is because, like the vampires themselves, a good story is immortal. Ready or not.
I'm really sorry about all this. It's true what they say, the rich really are different. I'll give you a 10-second head start.
Daniel.
Now, Ready or Not takes the classic children's game, hide and seek, and it raises the stakes as high as they can go. Well, maybe not as high as they can go because Squid Game kind of did that, but this is like matter of life and death kind of stakes. Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette co-direct this edge-of-your-seat experience that follows Grace, a beautiful bride, who has just happily married the man of her dreams at his family's luxurious estate, and everything is picture perfect. There's just one itsy-bitsy catch. Her husband, Mark's family, has this ritual that Grace must hide from midnight until dawn and avoid being caught by her new in-laws. Seems innocent enough. Grace even thinks so at first. That is, until she realizes that Mark's family has armed themselves with an array of weapons, including guns, crossbows, even Aunt Helene grabs a giant axe. I mean, the point is that they mean to kill Grace, and now she must desperately try to survive the night.
Sorry, the computer's acting up again. Let me just quickly reboot here.
Justin, just call the police.
Ma'am, it says here that the car was reported stolen. I'm sorry, but I have to shut it down.
No, what? No, what the f*** are you f***ing kidding me?
This film is honestly such a wild ride, and it is all the gore and jump scares that you'd expect from a horror, but it also veers so far into the lane of absurdity that you can't help but laugh. People are literally running maniacally through this lavish castle of a home, soaked in blood, getting their heads blown off with antique pistols, and taking arrows to the face. I mean, it reaches Tarantino levels of exaggerated gore, and all the while, Grace charges through this chaos without ever changing out of her wedding dress, like a total badass. Shout out to Samara Weaving for her epic performance in this one. Ready or Not received positive reviews from critics, with many praising the acting, script, and direction. And Entertainment Weekly wrote, quote, "Come for the crossbows and watch Weaving Star be born in real time. Stay for the socioeconomic lessons and sweet, sweet revenge." Well said. The Cabin in the Woods.
Okay, baby, let's see some boobies.
Show us the goods.
Does it really matter if we see?
We're not the only ones watching, Ken.
Gotta keep the customer satisfied. You understand what's at stake here.
Haven't horror movies taught us not to take trips to or go camping in the woods anymore? I mean, do we need to watch The Evil Dead and Friday the 13th to remind us of why we shouldn't? Actually, those are exactly the movies director-writer Drew Goddard was poking fun at when he made The Cabin in the Woods. Now, it's a story of 5 college friends who arrive at a remote forest cabin for a little vacation, unaware of the true horrors that await them. Now, as you've already predicted, one by one, the youths fall victim to the horrors that inhabit these dark woods. But something much larger is at play here. Unbeknownst to the sacrificial friend group in the cabin, there are 2 scientists manipulating the entire ordeal from their underground laboratory. Now, The Cabin in the Woods checks every possible box on the long list of horror tropes. Starting with the characters themselves, you got the jock type, the sexy cheerleader type, the stoner, the scholar, and of course, the virgin. Now, obviously, these choices are deliberately on the nose, and the filmmakers themselves have described this as a, quote, serious critique of what they love and don't love about horror movies. And one of the most enjoyable and brilliant aspects of this movie is that it somehow manages to be an entirely predictable and entirely unpredictable experience.
It's so strange. I'm actually rooting for this girl. She's got so much heart. You think of all the pain and the
Tequila is my lady! My lady! Come on in, guys. Come on in, come on in. You're welcome. Tequila! From darkness, there is light!
Now, to avoid spoilers, I won't dive much deeper into the plot, but I will say it is a must-see. Don't take my word for it, listen to what audiences and critics have said. Like The New Yorker, who wrote, "The filmmakers are less interested in providing a slow build-up to their frights than in splattering the cliches of the form in funny-spirited ways. Also, it's worth watching just for the merman. Yes, I said merman. And that's all I'm gonna say about it. Young Frankenstein.
What knockers?
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Oh, that's all right. There we are.
It doesn't get much more classic than Young Frankenstein, written and directed by Mel Brooks and starring Gene Wilder, the icon, who also co-wrote the script with Brooks. Now, Gene plays respected medical lecturer Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, who learns that he has inherited his infamous grandfather's estate in Transylvania, which is in Romania, which is also where Vlad the Impaler, aka Dracula, is from, just making sure that we're all paying attention here. I feel like I should have like a chalkboard. Anyways, when Dr. Frankenstein arrives at the castle, he begins to recreate his grandfather's experiments with the help of his servants Igor, Inga, and the fearsome Frau Blucher. But complications arise after Dr. Frankenstein creates a monster of his own.
Penny for your thoughts. You're incorrigible, aren't you? You little zipper neck. All right. 7 has always been my lucky number. Come over here, you hot monster.
Now, while working together on the satirical western Blazing Saddles, Brooks noticed that Wilder was writing notes on a legal pad with the words Young Frankenstein written at the top. This piqued Brooks' interest, and soon Gene pitched Brooks his concept for this movie, adding that it would be his dream if he would write the movie with him and direct it. Now, obviously, Brooks agreed, and what ensued was the making of what many consider to be one of the greatest parodies ever. Young Frankenstein was a box office hit, grossing over $86 million on a budget of just under $3 million. But the true legacy of this film can't be quantified. Newsweek called it, quote, the most cinematically assured, coherent, and tasteful of Brooks's films, and The New Yorker wrote that, quote, Wilder's hysteria seems perfectly natural. You never question what's driving him to it, his fits are lucid and total. And additionally, Young Frankenstein was selected for preservation in the Library of Congress by the National Film Registry. And even Brooks himself considers this to be his, quote, finest film as a writer-director, which is high praise, even if that praise comes from himself. Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
You okay?
Keeping the parody train rolling is Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, a story about two scruffy pals, yes, named Tucker and Dale, who take a backwoods vacation. Now, again, don't go to the woods, because bad things always happen there. And for Tucker and Dale, their little getaway takes a bloody turn when ignorant college students mistake them for a pair of murderous hillbillies. Turns out they had the wrong hillbillies, or I mean, did they? Watch the movie, folks. I am not in the business of spoiling this. What I will say is that, much like The Cabin in the Woods, this film plays on horror tropes. There is plenty of outrageous and laughable gore, like that one accident that may or may not involve a wood chipper. Also, someone impaling themselves with their own spear, shout out to our boy Vlad from Transylvania, and a man who may or may not accidentally shoot himself in the head. Again, I'm not giving too much away here. You got cabin and woman set on fire, car crashes, sawmills, tea-induced asthma attacks that cause convulsions, that then lead to someone falling out of a window to their death. Again, I'm not revealing anything.
Go back to hell where you belong, freak.
Be calm. It's your delay.
Stop! Hell on fire!
No, don't use that.
Stop the rope! Stop it! Get away from the turn out!
Now, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil premiered at Sundance in January of 2010, and it received a limited theatrical release in the US made on a budget of only $5 million. It was clearly not going to pack the same commercial punch as a big-budget horror release, but that didn't stop this film from being a critical success. Roger Ebert wrote that students of the Little Movie Glossary may find it funny how carefully Tucker and Dale works its way through upended cliches. Jennifer's Body.
Do you know how hard it is to make it as an indie band these days? There's so many of us, and we're all so cute, and it's like if you don't get on Letterman or some soundtrack, you're screwed, okay? Satan is our only hope. We're in league with the beast now, and we have to make a really big impression on him. And to do that, we're going to have to butcher you, and bleach you. And then Dirk here is going to wear your face. Relax, I'm kidding about the face. The rest is going to happen, though.
Jennifer's Body was written by Diablo Cody, who first rose to prominence after publishing a memoir entitled Candy Girl, A Year in the Life of an Unlikely Stripper. Cody then went on to win an Oscar, a BAFTA, an Independent Spirit Award, and a Writers Guild of America Award for writing the film Juno, her debut as a screenwriter. Point is, Cody is a badass and expertly penned this hyper-stylized story about a high school girl named Jennifer who gets possessed by a demon and now turns her hungry eye on a guy who never stood a chance with her before. Now, while evil Jennifer satisfies her vampiric cravings for human flesh with the school's male population, her nerdy friend, Needy, learns what's happening and vows to put an end to the madness and carnage, so much carnage. Now, at its core, Jennifer's Body is an examination of two unlikely high school friends and the glaring dichotomies of their existences. But it also satirizes small-town life, and similar to The Cabin in the Woods, plays on the personality-type tropes that we discussed earlier. Cheerleaders, jocks, band geeks, film buffs. I'm kidding, no film buffs were harmed in the duration of this movie. I can't say the same for Scream, though.
But what they didn't know is that she hasn't been a virgin since junior high. It all makes sense now. Read this. If the human sacrifice is impure, the result may still be attained, but the demon will forever reside in the soul of the victim. She must forever feed on flesh to sustain the demon.
Okay.
She's eating boys. They, make her really pretty and glowy, and her hair looks amazing. And then when she's hungry, she's weak and cranky and ugly. I mean, ugly for her.
Now, Jennifer's Body was a total flop upon its release, but interestingly enough, has been reevaluated in recent times and is actually now considered a cult classic. Many see it as a female-empowered sleeper hit that was simply ahead of its time, and it now shows up on lists of great horror movies directed and written by women. Additionally, the film has been praised in countless articles, with headlines like this one from Vice, saying Jennifer's Body would kill if it came out today, pun intended. American Psycho.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my God. It even has a watermark.
Something wrong? Patrick? You're sweating.
The film that made me rethink my skincare routine and my love for Huey Lewis and the news. I'm of course talking about American Psycho, written and directed by Mary Herron and based on the novel of the same name. Now, set in New York City in the 80s, Christian Bale is Patrick Bateman, a young and handsome investment banker who happens to moonlight as a brutal serial killer. Now, it's all fun and games for Bateman, that is until a private investigator named Donald Kimball, Willem Dafoe, starts asking questions about Paul Allen, a colleague of Bateman's who has mysteriously disappeared. Now, if you've seen the film, you'll understand immediately what happened to poor Paul Allen. It was a watermark on that business card. He just had to have that darn watermark. I mean, that's what did him in.
He's been compared to Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor.
Hey, Albert,
Yes, Alan?
why are there copies of the styles section all over the place? Do you have a dog? A little chow or something?
No, Alan.
Is that a raincoat?
Yes, it is.
American Psycho is one of the more comedically understated selections on this list, so unapologetically dark and disturbing that the satire might get lost on the average person. But we aren't your average cinema joes here, and moments like the one I touched on before, where Bateman is literally losing his mind over Alan having a better business card than him, are undeniably ridiculous and funny. American Psycho received polarizing reviews, with many praising and many criticizing Bale's performance. But there's no denying the cult status for this one, and the lasting power of its many notable moments that have now become some of the most popular memes on the internet. An American Werewolf in London.
Am I asleep now, awake, or what?
I realize I don't look so hot, David. But I thought you'd be glad to see me. David, you're hurting my feelings.
Hurting your feelings? Has it occurred to you that it might be unsettling to see you rise from the grave to visit me?
Sorry to be upsetting you, David.
An American Werewolf in London lends itself primarily to the horror genre. Many even consider it to be one of the greatest horror movies ever, and will often declare it as such, without bothering to mention that it's also a comedy. And they're not wrong, because this film is genuinely terrifying and offers plenty of suspense. It also contains graphic violence that is realistic enough to make you feel uneasy. Well, as realistic as a movie about werewolves could be. But the team behind this film also happens to be responsible for some of the most successful comedies ever. So of course, there are plenty of hilarious moments, like when the protagonist David wakes and finds himself naked in a wolf cage at the London Zoo. I mean, don't you just hate it when that happens? Everyone's looking at you like you're crazy.
You must die, David Kessler.
David, this is Harry Berman and his fiancée, Judith Browns. Hello.
Hello.
And these gentlemen are Alf, Ted, and Joseph.
Can't say we're pleased to meet you, Mr. Kessler.
Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, David and his friends Jack are American college students backpacking through Britain, where they are suddenly attacked by a large wolf. Now, David survives with just a bite, but Jack doesn't fare so well. Maybe that's because David ran away immediately and left Jack to fight the wolf alone. Solid friend, David. I mean, remind me to never invite you backpacking. Actually, don't ever go in the woods. Note to self. Anyways, as werewolf folklore has taught us, a werewolf bite means a werewolf life. And David literally becomes an American werewolf in London. Now, the film became an instant classic and won the first ever Oscar for Best Makeup. It also spawned a sequel, American Werewolf in Paris, which released in 1997. Slither! Writer Writer-director James Gunn, now known for the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, made his directorial debut with Slither, a film that pays homage to horror classics like John Carpenter's The Thing and David Cronenberg's Shivers and The Brood. Set in the fictional small town of Wheelsy, South Carolina, an alien organism has infiltrated the community and now threatens to devour all life on Earth. And that is my very PG explanation of the plot. I'm leaving out the parts about said aliens impregnating women who then swell up to the size of a small bus and then explode, releasing an army of slimy slugs that then enter people's mouths and take control of their brains and bodies. It's all disgusting and absolutely hilarious, like a horror comedy should be.
It's okay, Grant. You're just sick is all. You're just sick. We're just here to take you to get some help. Right now. And I'm gonna stay by you. Just like I swore I would. For better or worse.
Much worse.
The film was a box office failure, and it sparked controversy over its similarities to the 1986 horror comedy Night of the Creeps. But Gunn was very deliberate in referencing the B-movies of the 1980s, and controversy aside, critics were all about it, with the New Yorker speaking my language and calling it, quote, a delightfully disgusting comic horror film. Get Out.
Get out. Sorry, man.
Okay. Get out!
Yo!
Yeah!
Yo, chill, man.
Get out! Chill, man! Chill!
Last but certainly not least is writer-director Jordan Peele's Get Out. Daniel Kaluuya plays Chris and Allison Williams plays Rose, a young interracial couple who have reached the meet-the-parent stage of their relationship. But as we learn from Ready or Not, hanging with your partner's family can prove to be problematic or horrifying. And after Chris agrees to a weekend getaway at Rose's parents' estate, he's led down a rabbit hole of increasingly unsettling events and uncovers a dark truth he never could have imagined.
And see, this is what I came up with. They're probably abducting black people, brainwashing them, and making them slaves, or sex slaves, not just regular slaves, but sex slaves and shit. See, I don't know if it's the hypnosis that's making them slaves or whatnot, but all I know is they already got 2 brothers we know, and there could be a whole bunch of brothers they got already. What's the next move?
Now, Peele is a master of suspense, taking a page from the book of Hitchcock, but there was a lot of debate as to whether this film was meant to be funny or not. So much so that Peele felt the need to weigh in and humorously tweeted, quote, Get Out is a documentary. But then he further explained in interviews that, quote, it's not a movie that can be put into one genre box. What really matters are the film's messages and themes. Now, genre drama aside, Get Out draws on a very specific type of visceral terror, and Peele brilliantly subverts and reimagines many classic horror cliches, and does so with a wicked sense of humor. So it's not surprising that the film was a commercial and critical triumph, and that Peele won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. There you have it, my friends, our selections for the best horror comedies of all time. And of course, there are many others we didn't have time to discuss, but fear not, we have plenty of new episodes of RT Essentials coming your way, so I am sure we will get there soon. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I'm Naz Perez, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have to return some videotapes.